Right, hello, welcome. I'm back on this crazy 118 stuff again, or the 1118, or January the 18th. I'm back on this stuff again, and I wanted to show you this chart again because this chart, well, it's about balance basically. The whole chart is about balance, and it's this cross of Lorraine thing. And I had somebody else ask about it was Crystal Gem, I think, asked about seeing my the clock chart as well. That clock calendar thing that I did, the clock code thing, and I've drawn that out a little bit bigger with just black ink, so hopefully you can see it on this video. But this camera is not very good on this thing, so I don't know what it's going to come out like. But I want to do let's do the cross of Lorraine first and re-explain some of that stuff, because I know I keep going on about 58 and 85, and some people might not know what I'm referencing. So let me show you the thing, and then I'll talk through it. So this is the bloody hell. This is the chart, right? Let's see if I can get this thing straightened up and where you can see it pretty decent. Okay, so I've got most of the important stuff on there, right? So I guess I should talk now. I'm just going to talk through it, so you're going to have to listen carefully about what I'm talking about. Now, across the top row of numbers, that's just 0 to 10. At the end of that, it says 55. That 55 is a total for that column. So you can see 0 to 10 totals to 55. So an interesting set of numbers. One complete cycle, a perfect cycle, is 55. Now, the next line, the next row down, where we can see my finger on it, that is the Fibonacci sequence there. And so I've gone across to the 10th number in the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, so that's referenced with the 10, with the numbers above, the 1 to 10. And so you can see how the Fibonacci sequence works. Now, the Fibonacci sequence is a reference to the golden ratio, which is 1.618, yada, 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 on forever, bunch of numbers. And if you take one number and then take the preceding number, and you take your first number and divide it by the preceding number, you will get a close approximation, usually, to phi, to the 1.6. Okay, and that is the balancing point for this realm, for Earth, if you like. That's the balancing point. That's the golden ratio. That's what everything's designed from. That's the code to the matrix. That's the key to the matrix. So anyway, the Fibonacci sequence starts on 0 usually, as it's shown there. Well, you can start it on 2 as well. That's called Lucas numbers. And, we have dual perception in this reality. So it's an interesting set of numbers to look at, isn't it? To start on 2, to have two different perspectives and not have the perfect perspective of 0. 0 would represent perfect balance. It's a full cycle, okay? So anyway, I hope you can still see these numbers. I'm going to zoom in a little bit now. So we're going to cut off a little bit at the end. The interesting thing about that column, it starts 231, it ends 1 2 3, and it totals to 3 2 1. Which is interesting. The Fibonacci sequence totals to 1 4 3, which we're going to see again in a minute. Down at the bottom of those two columns that you can see, the two main columns in the middle, those two columns total to 55 and 88. Heard those numbers before, haven't we? Well, if you add those two numbers together, you get 143. Okay, so 143 represents the combination of those sets of numbers, the totality of those numbers, which is interesting that the first 10 numbers of the Fibonacci sequence, we're seeing 143 as well. So a number of completion there. And we are, if you look at 143, you are one digit short of 12 12s, and the whole of you know, the Earth, hours in the day and that sort of thing, and time cycling, we're dealing with the number 12 an awful lot. You know, the 12 apostles of Christ, you know what I'm saying? So, it's interesting to see where all these numbers come from. I don't know why I can't seem to get this to square out here. Here we go, this looks a bit better. Now, if we go down to the next column, I've called that pi. It starts with 3, and funnily enough, if you carry on going across, now, of course, 3 and pi is one of those numbers which is special because it's a sort of never-ending number again. Another sort of perfect number. So, anyway, 3.14 is pi, and pi is closely associated with 3, you know. So we have called that column, well, that row, pi. And you can see the numbers going across in there. And the final column is phi. Now, phi is the thing that's referenced in this whole chart, which is phi, which is 1.618, you know, etc., etc., etc. If you want to calculate phi, you usually will use the number 5, and I can't remember what it is. Bloomin' hell down, what is it? It's like, oh dear, I can't remember it. It's like the square root of, don't quote me on this, the square root of 5 divided by 2, add 1 or something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, trust me on this. The reason why it's probably called phi is, or 5 is called 5, is because it's very closely related with the how you get to that number. And interestingly enough, the total for that column is 588. Let me zoom in on these totals a bit more. So those totals are pretty interesting, aren't they? And I'm going to zoom in on the... Hang on a minute. Let's just talk about the first part of this, because this is the Leviathan cross as well. This cross of Lorraine that I've got drawn out here. So my two columns are the 5 column, which would be perfect balance, because we're dealing with 1 to 10 there. And, of course, the Fibonacci sequence, which is the next row down, affirms this as well. It's a number 5. So this perfect balance column starts with 5. Okay, and again, of course, phi and, you know what I'm saying? We're back to 5 again and phi. So perfect balance is on 5. Now, the realm that we're in, man's realm, Earth, starts on 6. Man is 6. The Earth is 6. And that's the column of materiality. This is what we're trying to balance. We're trying to balance 5, the perfect sort of spiritual balance point, with the material realm. So those two numbers have got to balance. So, you know, of course, 5 and 6 are balancing numbers, or 65. Now, the next set of numbers, which is really interesting to do with Back to the Future and a few other references actually, is the 58 and the 85. That's the next row down, which is Fibonacci. Now, if we go down one more, we've got the 1118. This is the number I keep going on about. This is right in the center. You know, we're on the Lucas numbers, the dual reality. So we've got those Lucas numbers there. Look, preceding this, we've got the 711. You know, September the 11th. Now, then below that we've got the pi number, and then look at this next number down. This is not the only place that this number shows up. Now, 233. Is it the skull and is it? Well, I can't remember now if the skull and bones number is 233 or 322. Honestly, can't remember off the top of my head. I get confused. But both those numbers show up in the Fibonacci sequence. The next few columns on, I've actually got them here. There's your next. There's 11, 12, and 13 columns, and you can see the 322 and the 233. I can't see what I'm doing now. both those numbers show up there as well, which again is interesting. You know, the 11th column down the bottom here as well, we've got a close approximation again to Earth's 1 year, 364, 365. All these numbers are like, you know, one digit one way or the other. All right, well, boy, I wish I could remember off the top of my head. I think it's 322 anyway. No, 23. Oh God, I can't remember. I don't know what it is. I can't remember. Anyway, it's one of those numbers. But it's interesting, isn't it, that that number pops up again here. Get rid of the 0. 233. I should look that up real quick. But I wanted to go through this just so you knew what I was referencing, you know. But this is super interesting. You know, that these two columns happen to total these numbers, you know. And okay, somebody would say, well, you've missed out, like starting at, where's number 4 here? You've missed out number 4 conveniently. Well, I have, but if we look at the first numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, the perfect sequence, we go 1, 2, 3, 5. And this is what we've got basically down here, 2, 3, 5 right here as well, which is pretty cool. I just started on 2 and 3 and 5 because if you look up Lucas numbers, it starts on 2. And you probably should start on 2 because you're not seeing a balanced scenario here. You're not seeing 0 first, you're seeing something different. Anyway, this is the other interesting thing where I can get the Leviathan cross from here. See this 3 for the triple goddess? Well, what surrounds the triple goddess is some mirrored numbers. So number 1, you've got a mirror, which 8 is a mirrored number as well. And if you add up, you know, one side of this mirror and the other side of this mirror, sorry, I'm not really doing this very well. The 1, 3 and 4 here, straight up and down, and you come across the other way as well, 1, 3 and 4, acrossways, you've got an 88 there. And what's interesting about that is 88, the triple goddess, the moon, and 88 references Mercury as well, its orbit. So, and Mercury, of course, is just another version of the moon. So it's not difficult to put an 8 here and get the Leviathan cross with an 8 and then the double cross up here. So anyway, that's the cross of Lorraine. Tons of really interesting numbers in there. You know, I love that also totals the 588 here. You know, and the 143. I mean, and the 55 up here, and these two totaling 55 and 88, and the 143 again. I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't know how that works, but it's very, very interesting. Anyway, you can draw your own one of them charts, hopefully from that. Now, this other chart, again, I mean, I'll have to do a proper video on why we chose 360 degrees, but this is this clock thing. Let me come in close and then we'll go out, right? So, look what I've got. I've got a bunch of stuff written on here. Hopefully you can see it all right. This is, just think of this as the regular clock face, right? Now you see the first set of numbers that goes around the outside. We've got 0 at the top and 12 at the top. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, and it goes around in a spiral. It just keeps on going around and around and around. You just keep on adding on one, you know, each thing of the clock dial, each movement of the clock dial. Now, the top of the clock, with relation to the calendar, would be the height of summer. So, you know, 12 and 24 would reference the height of the summer solstice, and that would be June, is how I've numbered it on there. Okay. The other thing we're looking at is the way that works on that calendar, I've put the numbers in for I'm trying to think what I've done there. The Julian calendar numbers are in brackets by each month. Okay, so you can see that as well. Now look what I've got in the center of the thing is Washington DC, and there's all this talk about electricity and DC and AC. Well, I've put Washington DC in the center of there because each one of the events that we've seen, if you look at a map and then study the landmarks in each one of those events, or the potential events that we've got marked here, they're all referencing one another, and they're all referencing Washington DC, which is the control center. So I've put that at the center. Well, you also need to get to the center of there, and Adam needs to get to the center, which is AC. Adam needs to become centered. You need an AC current, which is rather than going directly to somewhere, directly to jail, the AC current is a give and take current. Okay, it's a balance current, if you like. It's just another way of symbolizing balance. Super interesting. But anyway, I don't know why I just put that in there for fun, I suppose. But anyway, we've got the events on there as well. So in the east, so I've got north, south, east, west on there as well. So of course, north being straight up, where the sun is at the highest point, the summer solstice, and then you've got the equinoxes across, east and west. And so I put what happened in the east was well, that's not necessarily the first event, but the first major event, the first TT event, the Twin Towers in the east. Okay, and then I've got the next event. If you've listened to me talk about the journey one must take from from Sin City up the yellow brick road to the Emerald City, to become enlightened. That's the trek that Dorothy takes. At the end of her trek, when she gets to the Emerald City, she finally pulls back the curtain, the toga, and reveals the man underneath, or, reveals the illusion, let's put it that way. She finally gets understanding. Anyway, so those events are listed on there. So I've got the dam, which is the shield there, with the crown up on the top of it, waiting for those two things to split. We've got the corona going on right now. And so I've got the number of mans down there as well, 6, okay? That's when the sun first comes up during the day at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's when the sun's first rising. That's the first spark of man there. Okay, he's got a journey around. He's got to do a full cycle to be balanced. Anyway, then of course I've got on the east coast, kind of in the middle there, is, what is it? The Golden Gate Bridge. You have to get across, and then we go up to the north, up around the yellow brick road, which is Route 101, which is the coastal route. The yellow bricks being the sand between the fictional water and the land. That's the yellow path. That's the corona right there that you've got to travel up around to the Emerald City, which is Seattle. And that's your final destination. Hopefully once you completed that, you now have balance. Anyway, it's kind of nice that it follows that path. You've also got so anyway, it's got some interesting numbers. So anyway, you can make one of these yourself. Some people may want to put things in a different spot. I don't know if it's right or not. This is just what I come up with. Anyway, you can see it. Let me just go around so you can actually get a close-up of... Hopefully I haven't missed any of these numbers out. I mean, you'll know straight away because you're going up in multiples of 12 there. So if 12 o'clock comes out, you know, if you skip over on the 12th here somewhere, it's not in multiples of 12, you'll know you've gone wrong somewhere else. It's so difficult just putting numbers after one after the other. But anyway, you can see some of these numbers. And so what I was saying is that you could, if you wanted to balance certain numbers, but you know, look at the numbers of man. Again, we're back to that column on the cross of Lorraine with the 18. We've got the 6 again, which is the number of man. We've got the 18. We've got the we've got a 30. We've got the 42, which is interesting. And that actually might be the first number. You see, it's a reverse of 24. So it's kind of the first number that you get to that is it's almost a reverse cycle number. Then we got 54. Well, we had a reference to 54 somewhere else. I can't remember now. 66, 78, 90, 102, and I've put, like, you know, 66 is the 6th time around, and that of course balances with the 60, which is interesting. So the first 6th time around is the first time you get a number that's actually the same. Just drop that 0 off. Just interesting stuff, isn't it? And what was I put there? I think it was the 9th time around for the. I was thinking it was 108 up there. But anyway, you can see some of those numbers that are referenced, and there you've got the 9th time around being 102, which is a 12 as well. You know, I mean, it's just, you can start looking at this and start picking out certain numbers. There's January, it's got the 55 in it, what we was just talking about in January, and the 43. So it's interesting, isn't it? Just, I don't know what else to say about it. There's some numbers there. 9s, of course, are super interesting. And there's your 33 and 21 sitting right next to, and 45. Trump being the 45th president. What else have we got? Sorry about this. This is I get all turned around and back to front here when I'm doing this. Come on, Dan, try and get it right for people. Anyway, hopefully you've seen all them numbers. And 118 happens to fall on in the April thing. It's just interesting, isn't it? It's just interesting the way some of those things work out. I don't really want to do too much more on that. While I've just got a minute, right? While I've just got a minute, I just want to talk about this sort of sacred geometry, and because there's a ton of people, when I watch videos and read comments, they get so bent out of shape about certain numbers, i.e. like 33, and you know, you hear people saying, well, I have nothing to, and you even hear people that talk about stuff saying, well, I'm trying to avoid that number. And to me, you shouldn't avoid that number. That number is talking about balance. And everything in this reality, I'm trying to look for my bits of paper now. Everything in this reality is about finding balance in your life. You know, that's when you're the happiest. So, hang on a minute. Blooming hell, I've just got paperwork everywhere. It's like a completely crazy man's. I was talking about that with my wife the other day, and my sister as well, and she said, oh, you know what you want to get? Some red thread, and you can start pinning everything, all the bits together. You know, run some red thread across on the walls and that to all your different bits and bobs. Oh dear, it's just crazy sadness. Let's talk about some of these numbers here. Hang on a minute. Let's see if I can do this without messing everything up. Because there's just some basic. This is very basic stuff. I mean, I don't really know a lot about it. But this kind of stuff that it's useful to know, you know, because you don't have to be scared of all these numbers. I know the psychopaths use these numbers, but the reason why they use them is because they know they're sacred, you know. They're put there by, you know, whoever designed the system. So God essentially put these numbers there, you know, and then you hear people, oh, I can't use that number, and it's, oh, Illuminati and all this stuff. Right, let's look at this. So, okay, the first symbol that represents balance. Okay, you've got something and nothing at each end of an infinite line. And then you have to find a balance point between those two things for anything to exist or not exist, okay? Paradox, I know. Everything has to exist and nothing has to exist. And that has to be balanced. And that's what God is, right? He's balancing all of that, right? Now, the way that you represent that is with a circle. There's no beginning and no end, right? It's just one single line that continues around and around and around forever, all right? A cycle. That's how you show that thing. So everything is a cycle. In nature, everything is a cycle. It's there to show you that's how you balance things. Right. So the first sort of improper shape we can get to, we can do a cycle if we walked around the edge of this triangle here. So I've put it inside a circle, right? Because that's the balance, right? That's the cycle. So this is the first shape that we can get to. If we just draw one line in there, it's nothing, right? And we can't have two lines. So the first thing you can get to balance is a triangle. The angles on an equiangular, if I could say the word, triangle is 60, 60, 60. And they all add up to 180. So what we have is 666. Don't be scared of it. It's just simply representing an imperfect cycle. Now, if you were stood at the center of that thing and you looked at each angle, look, you've got the flux capacitor there, and I'm looking at each angle. In a circle, you would see 360 degrees. If you were traveling the circle, you wouldn't see anything. It was just a straight line. It would just be like walking in a like a squirrel cage. You'd travel 360 degrees, but you wouldn't be changing angle. Think about it like that. Now, but if I'm standing here and I'm observing that thing moving around, what I'm seeing is 666, 60, 60, 60, which is 180, which is only half of a cycle in this realm. We've already assigned 360 degrees to a circle. It doesn't have to be 360 degrees, but it just so happens that there's 365 day-night cycles for us to get around the sun, if you believe in the heliocentric model, right? Or thereabouts, right? And we balance that with the moon, which happens to be 12 lunar cycles of 29.5 days, happens to add up to 354, if I'm getting my numbers right, which is a difference of 11 days between the two things. So this is the legs 11 thing coming in again, and the balance, and the two ones as balance. Where am I going with this? And so right in the middle of that is about 360 degrees, all right? And then from that we get there's some other reasons why we divide it a certain ways as well, but we don't want to get into that today. We've got 360 degrees as a circle. The triangle is only half of that. So now you need to add in another triangle to balance, all right? You've got to add this other triangle in here to balance the one triangle. And what just so happens that we end up, so we get 180, right? And 180, and we've got 360 degrees. That's balanced. It represents a full cycle. This is where these numbers come from, right? Adam, the arrow pointing up, I'll let you guess what that represents as well. The phallus, right? Then we've got the womb of Eve, the downward pointing triangle. Those things balance each other. See, there's the womb. This is the bow, and this is the arrow. That's what I tried to draw there. One without the other is pretty useless, all right? You've only got half the equation. So that's how you get that balance. If I want to reference that shape of the triangle, excuse me, without drawing a triangle, I can draw just the center point and then draw to each corner. And I get the flux capacitor, you know, the Mercedes-Benz sign. Alright, the Holy Trinity. Balancing. So there's nothing to be scared of with 666 and all the rest of this stuff. What you want to be is, it is the mark of the beast 666. You need another 666 to be balanced. You need 12, 12, 12. But there's nothing wrong with that. Right. If I wanted, so the first symbol you get to, that you can stand in the center and look out and observe 360 degrees, is a square. Okay, so this imperfect realm that we're in is represented as a square, because it's not perfect. And so with the 360 degrees, there's some other stuff that references back to this, but just simply put, you know, this is the four corners of the earth. You know, the earth is represented in geometry as a square, right? How do we represent a square with just a couple of lines? With a cross. X marks the spot, you know what I'm saying? So the double cross, what does the double cross represent? If that's a single cross, then we need two squares. A double cross would be two squares, wouldn't it? Well, what's two squares? Let's go through this real quick. There's your two squares. It's an octagon. We're back to 8. Interestingly enough, the angles of the octagon add up to 1080. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? So we've got the double cross. 1080 is the double cross. There's another shape with all this phi. We should probably look at the number 5 and the pentagon, because of course 5 references perfect balance, and it references phi as well, which is the golden ratio. So we should probably just have a look at a pentagon and also a pentagram, you know, if I had a star shape. So yeah, of course, this is the Star of Ishtar, the 8-pointed star. That's the double cross right in the center there. And I don't know if there was anything else I wanted to say about that. Anyway, whatever. Oh yeah, there's a, you know, you can get you've got the 45 degree in there, and of course, I'm just trying to think what else you have in there as well. Oh yeah, the whole angles add up to 720. But this pentagon, if we look at the internal angles of a pentagon, we've got 108. And 108, this is good. 108, if you look at it 5 times, you get 540. And 540 happens to be half of 1080, which is the octagon's total angles that you see. Okay, the 720 on that was the angles inside the star, and the angles inside the star here happen to add up to 180 again. We've got 36 times 5, okay, and we've got the 72 referenced again. So these two these two shapes, the 5 and the 8, seem to balance one another pretty good. You know, they echo each other's numbers, which is pretty amazing. 5 and 8, you know, an odd number and an even number balancing each other. You know what I mean? Anything else interesting to say about it? So there's nothing, you know, too scary about it, is there? I don't think so. Oh, I'll tell you one interesting. This is a little farming tidbit. On a tractor, you have a power takeoff shaft, right? Where you can run all your equipment with. Okay, like your hay baler or whatever you're doing, right? Standard speed on one of those is 540, right? I don't know why this has gone dark now. So standard speed on a PTO shaft is 540. There's also another speed that you get on a PTO shaft, and I'm interested to find this out, but it's 1,000 RPM. Now, I'm wondering if it really is 1,080. And the other interesting thing is that the engine speed that you will get these speeds at is usually 1,800 RPM on your tractor. That's the optimal running RPM of your engine. It's just interesting, just a little tidbit of, well, it's actually interesting to me, but it's probably not interesting to anybody else. But anyway, something to do with farming there. The channels are supposed to be about. Yeah, that's it. I think that's got to be it. But these shapes aren't really anything to be scared of. I just thought it was interesting, you know. 360, the 36, and the 63 are references to a complete cycle. And what age does Diana die at? 36. What age is Madonna now? Another reference to the feminine side of things. 63. So that's super interesting. And I'll tell you one more interesting thing. When you take I've got it written up here. When you take, if I could find my camera, when you take and divide 18 by 11, this is the approximation you get of phi up here. 1.6363636363 reoccurring. This number here, phi proper, sorry. What am I saying? But you've got Diana's birthday and you've got Diana's marriage date right there. I should probably look at the rest of these numbers because these go on for ages. I should probably look at those other numbers. I should probably look at the rest of them and see whether there are death dates in there. I don't know. Super interesting though. I don't think there's anything else to say. You know, the 63, of course, is going to be, I don't know, there's going to be some interesting numbers there. And of course, they've managed to wangle a 36 as a completion date for the Hoover Dam. And started in 31. And if you actually look on the dam itself, it's 31 to 35. And I think that's Elvis's birthday, 35. But something happens, some changeover happens in 36 or something. Anyway, that's a date there. And then there's a ton of other dates in there that reference 81 and all those other good numbers. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see, won't we, if anything happens or not. I don't know. Maybe they don't blow it up. Maybe maybe it's something silly like a turbine explodes or something in the dam, and power gets shut off to part of Vegas for a day or something. Maybe it's as simple as that, or maybe it's complete collapse. Who knows what? Who knows what is going on behind the scenes here? Anyway, it may not happen for several more years. It may never happen. But anyway, it's an interesting thing to look at, and it's interesting talking about trying to balance reality. That's it, I think, for now. I've got some other numbers which I could talk about. I'll save them for another video. All right, cheers, bye.